Hello, everyone. Hello. I am going live on Yesshift. I'm Steven Schinder. Got the intro music. Hopefully, you can hear that. And yeah, going live with the Yesshift News Desk edition, the first one of the year. So, very excited to do this. Um, yeah, okay, I'm sounding good. I don't know if you can hear me there, but um, yeah, so it's just me on this one. Dad, we've been very busy with stuff going on over at Drum Talk TV. Um, our other site where we talk about the world of drumming, and we actually have a virtual concert going on over there with Drum Talk TV Brilliance, with the band called the Kinky Wizards. You can see all the event info on the Facebook event page over at Drum Talk TV. Go to that Facebook page. So, yeah, but anyway, yeah, we're talking about some Yes news on this episode. There's a lot to talk about, and there's also some looking back. There are a couple significant dates that were uh, that I looked them up, and I was also reminded of them, and so yeah, there's quite a lot to talk about, and I'll do my best to uh, talk about it as much as I can if I worded that poorly, but yeah, and again, I'm sharing this around into different groups. So, the big thing, just a quick overview of some of the topics on this. Rick Wakeman announced his final solo tour. The first few dates of it have been announced. I believe some of them, at least, may even be on sale now. Um, and there have also been some articles featuring Billy Sherwood and also talking about Peter Banks, and I believe John Anderson was also in an interview. And yeah, there's just so much going on. And the 35th anniversary, yes, 35 craze from 20 years ago. I want to talk about that as well. And Ed Shockey, who passed away almost 20 years ago on Monday, I want to talk a bit about him as well. So yeah, I'm going to touch on those and a bit more as best as I can. Um, yeah, so first off, I want to touch on the sort of more immediate things going on, and then I'll do the reflecting, I guess. I saw that, the NAMM show is going on this weekend, of course, and there have been some nice photos coming out from that. I saw that Dave Kersner took one with Jeff Downs, and I believe there was also one with Jeff Downs and Patrick Moraz standing together. That was on Jeff Downs' Twitter page. So that's really cool seeing the two of them side by side. There's actually a Patrick Moraz interview going on today at the NAMM show at 4 p.m. Pacific. And that'll be available on I believe that's going to be streamed live on the NAMM Show Plus app. And this is actually the first time that I've heard about it. I don't know about Dad or other people, but yeah, there's just been so much going on. But yeah, Patrick mentioned that on his Facebook page, and he's also being featured there tomorrow, I believe. Let me just look at the posts on his page real quick. It's so cool seeing how Patrick has been involved in stuff again. He was part of a live stream concert that happened last fall. So, okay, yeah. So the interview today, or hang on, is this today? Hang on. Let's see, interview. Okay. Yeah, it is today. So he'll be interviewed by Michelle Moog Kuza, executive director of the Bob Moog Foundation, during a TEC tracks session on Friday. That's today at 4 p.m. And yeah, people can check that out on the NAM Show Plus app, or I don't know, maybe people will be able to see it there. I'm not really sure. Um, and yeah, so I'm really curious, like what'll come out of that. If there will be, if it's just gear talk, or if there might be anything about new upcoming activities. But yeah, very exciting stuff right there. And also want to give a shout out again to Awaken, the Yesshift band. We had Joe Luca, the keyboardist of that band, on our most recent episode. Their first 9012 live show is happening tomorrow. You can check out the dates over on their social media. And also shout out to Total Mass Retain. They have Chris Squire birthday shows, a couple of them, I believe. I saw a post where they said they're going to do something interesting with We Have Heaven. And they have shirts available as well. Actually, on John Davison's birthday, this was actually after I did the John Davison birthday episode. There was a nice post by guitarist Johnny Bruns, um, of Total Mass Retain, and he had like a little throwback pic of the tribute band Roundabout, which John Davison was also part of. So yeah, people can check that out. I believe it's on his page, if I remember correctly. It's really cool, like looking back on those sorts of things. Let's see what else we got. Oh, I also want to give a shout out to Close to the Yes, Texas. They have a YouTube channel and they've posted a couple covers of changes and long distance run around. It's so encouraging to see like all these different tributes. It's really cool. So, yeah, I'm just making sure that this is being shared around as I talk. Let's see. And if you're tuning in live, tell me where you're watching from. Or if you're watching after the fact, just say where you're watching from anyway, I guess. I don't know. Uh, okay. All right. So things are looking good. Okay. Now, next thing I want to talk about, I believe this was yesterday. There was a post about Peter Banks. It was a repost of this article on him, and I believe it was originally in Classic Rock Magazine or something like that back in 2014, but it got reposted on Louder Sound, and there were some interesting details on there. Um, what Peter was like as a person and the complications at the end of his life and after his passing, and he really was an underrated guitarist, and I really wish that he had gotten more recognition in his life. And again, there's that documentary claiming Peter Banks, which has been in the works for a while. I believe people can still donate to that at Supposable Productions. So go look that up. And yeah, again, just such an underrated player. And I also saw that Two Sides of Peter Banks actually got reissued on red marble vinyl. And this is available over on Cleopatra Records. And oh, okay, see Gary Van Leeuwen chiming in saying, Love Rick. Yeah, I'll be talking a bit more in depth about the details that were posted about the final solo tour in a little while after some of these other things. Um, yeah, so I'm just sharing the link to that Two Sides of Peter Banks Red Marble vinyl. That Dad and I reviewed that album a while back during our solo albums, like first solo album since joining Yes series. So definitely encourage people to check that out. And hey, if you're a vinyl collector, maybe you'll be interested in getting this. It looks aesthetically pleasing, the red marble vinyl. So that should be neat. But yeah, can't give enough credit to Peter Banks. He came up with the Yes name. So, like, I remember maybe this was in the piece that I read that if Peter Banks had not come up with the Yes name, the band would have been Maybe or something like that. So, yeah, and people really gotta give him his due. He was such a great guitar player, I was also involved in some session work that I was unavailable until I read this article. So people go check that out. Now, while we're also talking about people who passed a while ago, Peter's passing being almost 11 years ago this March, I believe. Ed Shockey, uh, great radio voice. He passed away January 29th, 2004, complications with diabetes. And um, I was familiar with him. Like, obviously, I would have been too young. And, it's more of a. Lots of people in Philadelphia knew him, and I was not tuned into radio over there. But he some of the interviews he did with Yes members were posted on YouTube several years ago, and so I listened to something from actually a couple things from the union period, in the middle of college. It was like 2016 or 17, I believe, and just that nostalgia of listening to something from that era, a time before I was like before I existed, basically. And part of that is a Yes Years video. I get so nostalgic for the Union period because of that. But yeah, Ed Shockey was such a Scott Bluebond put it very well. Like, he really made Philadelphia feel like Yes Adelphia. And Scott has also mentioned that Ed was such a great friend. And there's this post of an interview, or not an interview, like a piece that came out after Ed's passing, and there was it summarizes like some of what Ed was all about pretty well. Let's see. For many, a Philadelphia baby boomer. Oh, I should read where this is from. This is a piece by Jonathan Tackiff. So for many a Philadelphia baby boomer, Shockey's radio shows through the decades were literally the soundtrack of their lives and an advanced course in music appreciation. Always at the head of his class stood talents like Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, and Yes, whom Shockey tenaciously played from virtually unknown status until he'd helped to make them superstars on almost every shift of his gigs at WMMR and later WIOQ in the 70s and 80s. That, of course, is back in the freeform years of progressive rock radio when DJs could still pick the music, indulge in their passions. And there's a quote from Chris Squire. Ed was very helpful to our band in the early days of Yes, being one of the first DJs in Philly and the US to adopt Yes music. And later in this post, there's also, um, or actually, I think I read this elsewhere, that during the funeral, And You and I was played. And strange coincidence, Ed's birthday, he shares the same month and date as my dad, like same birthday, but 15 years apart. So, yeah, Ed was so legendary. I'm going to post this link to that post in the comments real quick. Um, and as I said, I've listened to some of the interviews he's done with Yes members. One of them from March 1976, he talked with Steve Howe and then Chris Squire. So this will be during the solo albums period, post Relay or pre Going for the One. And I love how in that interview they go into the details of the making of certain songs, like details here and there about the making of like Soon and some stuff on Steve Howe's Beginnings album. Like, I did not know that Breakaway was written before his son Dylan was born, Dylan Howe. And some other interesting things in that particular interview were The bit of Awaken, the high vibration go on. We, of course, know that some of that was played during that solo album tour period, and it was showcased on Ed's show as well. So people got like a sneak peek of that. And back then, Steve Howe talked about how, oh, we're going to do a world tour and there will be a documentary that will be part making of the album and part, concert. And I guess that explains the filming of the Going for the One sessions and later the Glasgow show on the Going for the One tour. But I'm sure that somewhere along the way, plans sort of fell by the wayside. But of course, the footage from both of those is out there. And they would kind of do that with something like that with Yes Speak many years later, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, another very portentous thing that was said in that particular show, the March 76 radio show or whenever it was, um, Ed talks to Chris about how, oh, will there be a Yes reunion or there should be a Yes reunion, with past members. And this was very like I just sort of did a double take because later on during the union period, or like right before union, he would get Chris and John on his show together, and this was supposedly the first time they had spoken to each other in a couple years because they sort of went their separate ways with Yes West on one end and ABWH on the other end, and so they reunited, and then the union thing got going, and during that union period, there's also this program that Ed hosted called The Yes Story, and it would take snippets from past interviews and uh, bits of different songs from over the years. It began with a little bit of silent talking and ended with, I believe, Saving My Heart. And like listening to that particular uh, radio show, like listening to that during the mid 2010s when I'm in college and discovering myself and feeling very nostalgic for that time shortly before mine. It's just, it really felt like something special. And like imagining being in that period and all this Yes stuff is going on, Union, Yes years. And you got Ed talking about the Yes story. And he seemed like he really knew his stuff and was an all around great guy. And so um, yeah, it's unfortunate that he passed at 55. That's relatively young compared to like, like it's really sad to think about, but he really did create a legacy and he helped cultivate the Yes Philadelphia community. Something I learned in the last several years is that Philadelphia feels like Yes Central to a bunch of people, which is why you'd have stuff like I believe it was Yes Fan Fest around the time of the 50th anniversary. So, yeah, again, got to give credit to Ed Shockey and such an amazing career right there. I don't know if I can quite do complete justice to him, but just based on the stuff I've heard and the stuff, the broadcasts I've listened to, like way after the fact, and the stuff I've read about him, just seemed like such a great guy. Um, so yeah, that's my nod to Ed Shockey. And next up, let's see, what do we have on the dock here? Oh, speaking of the Going for the One documentary idea, there's actually a recent post over on the Ryel NYC YouTube channel. So this person has done video essays on drama, relayer, tales, and more recently there's one for Going for the One. So really interesting what fans of the band can put together there. I'm sure some of you have probably watched it, and it really takes various different things into account. So I'm always fascinated whenever these fan made documentaries are put up. So next up, sorry, I'm just sharing this around. doing a Yesshift news. Okay. All right, next up on the doc. So that documentary aspect, that brings me to uh, Yes Speak. You know, today, January 26th, is actually the 20th anniversary of when that documentary came out, and it was even put in theaters. And afterward, there was a live broadcast of was known as Yes Acoustic, guaranteed no hiss. And then the day after that, you'd have Ultimate Yes, the 35th anniversary collection. I actually have my copy over here, which would get promoted. You know, on the 27th of that year, apparently Yes did their acoustic set on, or some of acoustic stuff on Jim Ladd's show. You know, Dad and I talked about Jim Ladd recently, who passed away about a month ago. And I believe that was also the same day they'd play an acoustic version of Roundabout on the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn. So there was a huge 35th anniversary marketing craze way back then. Um, and yeah, so I guess first off, I'll talk about Yes Speak. I'm doing little broad overviews of them, and chime in if you've watched or listened to any of these things. So, Yes Speak, that documentary was filmed basically when Yes were on the road on their 2003 Full Circle tour. And you'd get glimpses of performances from the Glastonbury Festival and the Birmingham concert, which would not be released in full until 4 years later, 2008, as Yes, the director's cut. I'm not sure why there was a long wait, but back then it felt to me like that was released that year to capitalize on, you know, Yes was planning a 40th anniversary tour, so you gotta remind people of the band type thing. And the footage I've seen from that looks really good. I remember the commercials for that were, or I guess, put on YouTube back then. But Yes Speak was mainly focused on the interviews, and you would get snippets of concerts from that tour. I remember back in the day, you know, 2004, Dad had the DVD of Yes Speak, and we watched it, and it had some humorous moments. But I think as a kid, you know, I was 9 going on 10. I would be 10 by the end of that year. And my frame of reference for what a Yes documentary, quote unquote, should be was the Yes Years documentary, and that had a different style, different editing. You'd have the band members being interviewed, and it would keep cutting to snippets of performances from all over different eras. Whereas Yes Speak is very much the classic lineup in 2003 on the road, and the snippets would not be from all over their history, but rather from that most recent tour. And I think something about the pacing being different and the interview style being different. Like as a kid, I didn't appreciate it enough, really. But as an adult, I definitely appreciate it more. But I feel like, you know, you have to be in a certain mood for it. Like there's some really cool stuff. Like they spotlight each of the members at a time, talk about their playing and a little bit about their influences. Um, and um, oh, I see a comment from Gary. The Going for the One documentary. Yeah, the one on YouTube I saw was them in Switzerland. They went there to save on taxes. They had their own plane, and the Yes uh, decal, or you know, the plastic logo thing blew off and went in the plane engine. Yeah, I think that was new information to me. That was really wild. Unless I read it somewhere and then forgot, but yeah. So Yes Speak, I think one has to really be in a certain mood for it. If you want a Yes documentary that's more snappy and not too much of a time commitment, I can see choosing Yes Years. A classic artist, the 2007 or 8 documentary, feels like a much longer, expanded version of Yes Years, but with the clips of the different eras sort of dialed back. It's more focused on the interviews. That one's a bit more of a time commitment. But yeah, I definitely appreciate Yes Speak a bit more as an adult. Like, as a kid, I didn't fully grasp the whole thing, but as an adult, like I do enjoy it. Um, Sorry, just give me a sec. Just taking a little sip of water. Okay. Um, let's see. How do I sound right now? Okay. Sorry, just need to check something real quick. Maybe I need to refresh this. Yeah, I think that's what I'll need to do. Yeah, I'm just making sure that my mic settings are still good. Um, Making sure there's no dead air as well. Oh, that took me somewhere completely different. Okay. Okay, I'm sounding good. Okay. So it was pretty impressive that back then, or I don't know, maybe it isn't that impressive. Maybe they did nail it down pretty well by that time, but back then, Yes Speak was in theaters, and then afterward, they would cut to a live broadcast of Yes Acoustic. And this was a period where John would play the song Show Me, and you'd have like that bluesy version of Roundabout and an abbreviated version of South Side of the Sky. And you'd have Time is Time for Magnification, which fit pretty well in that set. We've talked about how it's sort of odd to have it as an album closer for Magnification, but I think it fits pretty well in the acoustic set. And the Yes Acoustic DVD also includes the commentary by Rick Wakeman, which is really hilarious, like the comments he makes. And it's just really fun stuff there. Um, but yeah, so that was January 26th. And then the 27th, you'd have Ultimate Yes 35th Anniversary Collection, which I'll go ahead and grab my copy right now. I almost said grab my coffee, and then my brain was like, wait, that's not what I'm trying to say. So I did not get this right when it came out. I sort of got it after the fact because at that time my priority was getting the full studio albums. But later on during middle school, this is probably eighth grade, early 2009, I was like, you know what? I need to get this because it has some extras, so to speak. So this is my copy right here. Um, Kind of shows its age, I guess. Um, yeah, it's got extras. I think one of the track listing is different from between the UK and the US, from what I understand. But looking at this, I know that the In a Word Yes box set had come out not long before this and was more comprehensive. But it did bother me a little bit that the first track is not from the first Yes album. There's nothing from the debut album on this. It starts with Time and a Word, and that's the only Peter Banks track, I suppose. I know there's been some debate about whether or not he's on that track, but it's definitely from that era, obviously. Um, like there are maybe a couple tracks I would have swapped out for something from the debut album, like Long Distance Runaround. So the track listing on this, I'll just blaze through it real quick. Time and a Word, Starship Trooper, Yours is No Disgrace, I've Seen All Good People, Roundabout, Long Distance Runaround, Heart of a Sunrise, South Side of the Sky, And You and I, America, Single Edit, Wondrous Stories, Siberian True, Soon, New Edit, Going for the One, Don't Kill the Whale, Tempest Fugit, Owner of Only Heart, Leave It, It Can Happen, Single Edit, Rhythm of Love, Big Generator remix. So that was kind of a bit of a draw for me. Lift Me Up, The Calling, single edit. Open Your Eyes, Homeworld the Ladder, radio edit. That was another little rarity there. Magnification, And on disc three, you'd have a little acoustic EP, I guess you could say. Roundabout, Show Me, South Side of the Sky, Australia, which is Steve Howe's, and New World Sympathy Symphony, which has gorgeous bass from Chris on there. So this that third disc kind of felt like the final studio album in a way, or I guess EP for that classic lineup. It was like a final recording by them. Although I guess technically the Yes Acoustic concert and the radio stuff around then would have also been in studios, but you get what I mean. Um, let's see. Okay. Oh, I see comments from Scott Bluebond. Yeah. Oh, I also remember on YouTube there was that video. Yeah, you know the one where John Anderson on Ed's birthday, 10 years after his passing, played Leaves of Green as a little tribute to him. That was really nice. But Scott chimes in saying, not too long ago, uh, sorry, it keeps moving up, but okay. Yeah, okay. Not too long ago, John Anderson requested Ed's interviews from his wife Judy, who accommodated him. If John gets his book done, I look forward to what he says. Yeah, I believe that book that John's been talking about is called Survival and Other Stories, just like one of his solo albums. Scott says Ed's interviews are archived, I believe, at Monmouth University. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for chiming in, Scott. Really appreciate it. Gary also chimes in saying the acoustic idea was Chris's. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure for a while whose idea it was initially. I guess part of me assumed it might have been John's because he started doing solo acoustic shows and those were a bit easier on him. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I thought the acoustic stuff was a neat flavor of that 35th anniversary craze and marketing and whatnot. But yeah, going back to Ultimate, yes, I do really love the, nitpicking on the track list aside, compilation wise, I do really love the Roger Dean artwork. It's got that really cool like orange landscape and the rock formations. Kind of harkens back a bit to Union in a way. Like I've never really drawn that comparison because those feel like such different eras. Damien and Durrell says, "Do you have any art prints from Yes?" No, I don't believe I do, unless I'm forgetting anything. Um, but yeah, look at the art, and if you're watching the video, I should say, look at the art like inside Ultimate, yes, and it also has like this little poster as well. So you got like the little booklet thing, and you just open it up. Okay, it's got the discography on one side, but you also got like the Yes 35 against the rock formation. Isn't that neat? Like you just fold it out. And there's a nice essay by Chris Welch in here. We had him on our show a while back. A really nice guy. So yeah, I really like the packaging of this compilation album, and also got I still has this these advertisements for the Yes shirts and whatnot. A throw blanket. Um, we got. Oh, I'll show the discs as well. Um, yeah, I gotta look at the screen, making sure it's all on camera. So you got yellow, blue, and reddish orange Yes logos. So yeah, I do like the packaging of this, even if I do think the track listing of the compilation stuff could have been maybe tinkered with a bit more. From what I understand, maybe this was the UK version, but there was a little mishap back then where instead of the studio the official release of And You and I on Close to the Edge. It was the alternate version. Um, so yeah, but anyway, yeah, this is a really cool to have like a physical copy of, and again the acoustic stuff. Like it really, like I kind of get nostalgic for that era. I believe the acoustic DVD I watched, like my uncle had that one. I don't know if dad had it, but I remember seeing it at my uncle's place. And yeah, these were really cool releases. Yes Speak, which I didn't appreciate as much until being an adult. Yes Acoustic and Ultimate Yes, the 35th anniversary collection. So yeah, the 35th anniversary craze was huge back then. And I actually have some words from Dad about his thoughts on the 35th anniversary stuff. So let me just open up that note. Okay, here it is. He says, regarding the 35th anniversary craze, I love Yes Speak, and the acoustic thing they did was really great. It's funny, it's so good that it's surprising. It took them so long to do that, 3.5 decades. A note on the 35th anniversary tour. I love songs from Songas. Yeah, I do as well. It might be my favorite Yes video concert. Spoiler, it's my probably my favorite as well. What is strange to me personally is that when I saw the concert in person, while of course it was magical, and this would have been a different venue, not the Songs from Songa's venue. Somehow I felt underwhelmed at the time, and I'm not sure why. It might have been my state of mind, as it was kind of a tenuous time in my life that I was going through even more so than I knew at the time. And I also hadn't spoken with Alan in a while, and I think maybe I felt bad about that going to the concert and not having spoken in a bit. But I love the songs from Songa's DVD. It's truly amazing. Yeah, I agree. And Dad and Alan would talk again at a later point. He even showed up, I think, at least a couple of times on Drum Talk TV. Got to see him interview Alan at the NAM show 4 years ago. So yeah, I'm glad they were able to talk again eventually. Um, and yeah, like Dad was just like had so much going on. Like I know what he's talking about. We won't get into like what was going on. It's really complicated, but yeah, sometimes things come up in life and you sort of lose touch with people for a bit, even when like you could have just reaching out is easy, but not so much when you're going through like all these other things. So um yeah, and again, like I just want to touch upon these 35th anniversary things because the anniversaries and whatnot. But I'm sure when we eventually, we still have this in mind. 21st century, yes, concert films. That's an idea we still have in our notes, and we want to do eventually. I'm sure we'll go a little bit more in depth on a couple of these there. Um, it's just a matter of like there's still like a couple concert films that I'm not sure that either of us have watched in full, so we'll have to make time for those. There's just been so much going on. I know that sounds like an excuse, but we'll do our best. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, um, I guess we'll go to like more present day stuff. So, uh, oh, I should mention today's Billy Greer's birthday, the bassist, and vocalist. I mean, of Kansas. Um, so yeah, happy birthday to Billy. And I saw about a week ago there was an interesting thing that happened in the Kansas sphere. Let me see if I can find it just to confirm. Uh, yeah, this would have been on the 19th, I believe. Oh, okay, yeah. Former Kansas guitarist Zach Rizvi filled in for Richard Williams that weekend, so last weekend, while Richard was recovering from a brief illness. So, yeah, I'm sure that was an interesting thing that happened as well. And Tom Brislin appeared in the Florida Times, did a little interview, or they got quotes from him talking about the Kansas 50th anniversary and, his history with the music and how they're trying to play something from almost every album. So really cool to see that in the press. Wow, 50 years! Like that first album turns 50 this March. That's quite incredible. So continuing on into more current stuff, let's talk about Rick Wakeman's solo tour. That was quite a huge thing there. It's his final solo tour. So let me open up the press release that came like just earlier this week. Like I shared this around from our page, and lots of people were like, "Oh, come to this place, come to that place," and I'm like, "Well, you might want to comment on the actual like Rick Wakeman page." Like, yeah, I don't know, but people were understandably concerned that they thought that the first few dates were like all of the dates on the solo show, but Rick clarified things a bit later. But let me just I'll just read verbatim from this press release. Okay, here we go. Rick Wakeman announces the final solo tour, featuring highlights from his career with Yes and solo work, including the premiere of the brand new Yes Sonata. The ultimate keyboard wizard, Rick Wakeman, CBE, will be embarking on a tour of the US with a series of solo piano concerts for the last time in 2024. Rick, who has become almost as well known for his intimate piano shows as his prog rock extravaganzas, has decided that after a career spanning over 50 years, he is calling a halt to lengthy American one man show tours in order to concentrate on composing, recording, and collaborating with other musicians. As an exclusive gift for fans on these shows, Rick will be premiering a brand new piece of music, Yes Sonata, a 30-minute instrumental work featuring Yes themes and melodies woven into sonata form. Rick first started establishing a reputation as one of rock's most original and proficient keyboard players in the late 60s when he worked with the likes of David Bowie, Cat Stevens, Mark Bolan, Lou Reed, Al Stewart, Elton John, and other artists too numerous to mention. As a much in demand session player, he stepped out of the recording studio and into the limelight when he first joined Straubs and then Yes, helping to make the latter the most successful progressive rock band in the world by contributing to seminal albums such as Fragile and Close to the Edge. But outside of Yes, Rick was really able to unleash his creativity with a series of groundbreaking concept albums. The Six Lives of Henry VIII, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I believe the recording of Journey actually turned 50 sometime this month. And the myths and legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, which have been performed in large scale shows featuring bands, orchestras, and choirs. However, he is equally at home as a solo artist in up close environment of concert halls, performing music on a piano, both his own and tunes that have a special resonance for him, and recounting wickedly funny stories taken from the length of his career. In recent years, he has added a rack of electric keyboards to ring the changes and enable him to enlarge his live solo repertoire. Now, for the last time in 2024, Rick will be taking to the road in the US with an all new solo piano and keyboard show, featuring the premiere of a stunning new work. Don't miss this final opportunity to enjoy an evening of great music and hilarious stories delivered by one of the truly legendary figures of rock music. Let me just take a sip before I read this statement from Rick that's in the press release. A statement from Rick. I always plan to stop touring by my 77th birthday. For those of you who wish to send me a card, it's May 18th. But there is so much to fit in before then that I'm having to make plans now and so my final one man shows will have to cease by that date. I have thoroughly enjoyed performing the various one man shows, but it's time to call it a day. I intend to throw in the best of what I have done in the past, plus a few new surprises on the way, and possibly even the odd guest joining me on the odd occasion. The plan is not to perform at the same venue twice throughout this period, so whatever venue you are hopefully thinking of coming to, it will be the last performance there, and I am taking this opportunity of thanking everyone and anyone who has supported me over the last 53 years. After this initial string of dates, Rick will be taking the tour to South America in April, but will return to North America for the second leg later in the year. And so, right here, I'm sure you can find this on his site, the 2024 US tour, the first leg. It looks like this is on the East Coast, starting in Ridgefield, Connecticut on March 19th and ending at the Hart Theater in Albany on March 29th. And yeah, it looks like all of these are on sale now, according to these dates. And there was an update from Rick providing clarification regarding some of these. So let me just look at that real quick. Um, let's see. Or maybe it was on his Twitter. Yeah, I think it might have been, or X, I guess I should say. Let me look that up real quick. All right, here we go. At Grumpy Old Rick. Just scrolling. Yeah, just to put the facts straight, in March I performed 9 shows in the USA, which will be the beginning of the very last one man show tours there. The main bulk of shows will be in October and November, and if demand is there, may carry on into 2025. So this won't be as short of a solo tour as maybe some perhaps thought. I really hope that he comes somewhere nearby here on the West Coast, because I do want to catch one of these, because it'll be the last time solo wise anyway. Um, so yeah. Also, just today I saw the announcement of uh, the opening of, or is this the, oh yeah, new international online store launches. And this is Rick Wakeman official store, and there's some different shirts. Grumpy Old Rockstar, Rick Wakeman UK Tour 2024. Oh, there's a Grumpy Old Rockstar tour mug as well. Live at the Palladium, live at the London Palladium 2023 4 CD box set. I'm sure that was a momentous occasion. There's a cap, a tote bag, so interesting stuff there. Let me look at his page again and make sure I'm not missing any other news, because I think I saw something else earlier. Um, okay, if you're in the area, there's a Water Rats Charity Variety Spectacular in Great Yarmouth on Sunday, 4th of February. Be great to see you there. Okay. Uh, Yeah, I'm just looking through more of this. Um, yeah, I know there was like something else I saw, and I'm just getting to it real quick. Yeah, there was this post by Annie Haslam about 10 days ago saying, I'm so looking forward to this. What a night it will be. Rick plays such a huge role in my musical journey, as with other musicians and fans all over the world. And it's this ad for the Saturday, March 23rd Rick Wakeman concert in Collingswood, New Jersey. So, yeah, I'm sure that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, just looking at comments real quick. Gary says Kansas warmed up yes in 1975. And for Rick, he says, I hope he does segments of The Lord of the Rings and Criminal Record. A few years ago, he did a few shows with John Anderson. Yeah, I think that was actually in 2010 or around then. But yeah, actually, Gary, The Lord of the Rings um, album wasn't really conceived, like, it wasn't conceptualized as a by Rick as a Lord of the Rings concept album. It was more, from what I understand, a compilation, like whatever label that came on out on, like took pieces from different Rick Wakeman solo albums and just retitled them and then slapped the whole like Middle Earth motif, like art and title theme, whatever, like um, basically repackaged some of his solo works as if it were a Lord of the Rings concept album type thing. I actually have a copy of that CD though, funny enough, but yeah, it's sort of an oddity in the Rick Wakeman catalog. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through the Google Doc, making sure um, I didn't miss anything. I think that's pretty much it for Rick Wakeman. I know I saw that he's headlining the Crop Ready Festival, at least one of the nights later this year, and Trevor Horn's band will also be a different night. I believe both of those are in August. But there's also, speaking of Wakeman, there's also a post by Oliver Wakeman with a little bit of a progress report, little update here. So 6 days ago, he said, I've been very quiet on social media, but as always, that means there's lots going on. Working hard on prep for the Onam Kara release info coming soon, and just finishing the writing for a film soundtrack I've been working on. Rodney Matthews' album is next on the list. Okay, I'm very curious, like, what this film might be. And yeah, Onam Kara we've been hearing about for a while, so I'm really looking forward to that. And um, yeah, as always, like, I'm very eager to check out more of Oliver Wakeman's music that he puts out. So that'll be really cool. All right, so let's see what's next in the news. Okay. Yeah, Cruise to the Edge. I saw there were a couple people added to Cruise to the Edge, so let me make sure I got that info handy so I can read it off. So I saw this over on their Facebook page. Um, yeah, special performance by Steve Morse Band come on board Cruise to the Edge 2024. And then this next post, pre-cruise kickoff. The night before we sail out, please join us at Magic City Casino for a musical celebration. Steve Morse Band District 97 and Marbin will be your musical entertainment on March 7th. Ticket info coming shortly. Yeah, so that cruise and that pre-cruise kickoff, those are happening in March. So very exciting stuff. If I remember correctly, Dave Kersner's All Star Band will be there playing stuff from Heartland Mines, Volume 1 and 2, I believe. And Billy Sherwood, like I read somewhere that Billy Sherwood was announced to be going there as well. So that should be really cool. But speaking of Billy, there's also this upcoming Prague Collective album coming out in March. I would just look at the release date. Okay, shipping out on or around March 15th. And you can see this at theprogcollective.bandcamp.com. This album is called Dark Encounters. And so let's look at the names on this. So we got Darkest Hour featuring Steve Stevens, Ominous Signs featuring Steve Morse. Oh, hey. At the Gates featuring David Cross. Oh, we've had him on the show. Dark Days featuring Bumblefoot, Patrick Moraz, and Omar Hakim. The Lonely Landscape featuring Kazim Sultan. The Long Night featuring Frank Dimino and Marco Miniman. The Quasi Effect featuring Billy Sherwood. The 11th Hour featuring John Etheridge. Between Two Worlds featuring Steve Hillage and Greg Bissonette. Distant Thunder featuring Todd Sucherman. Dark Money featuring Joe Bouchard. For All to See featuring Pat Mastelotto. Beyond Reason featuring Chad Wackerman. I Saw the Light featuring Todd Rundgren and Rick Wakeman. This is a bonus track, so maybe it's an archival track. I'm not really sure. And I'm Not in Love instrumental version featuring Rick Wakeman and Nectar. Again, that's also a bonus track. So yeah, I'm very curious to see. Um, oh, I see more comments coming in. Doug Curran saying correct with Billy on the cruise, and Gary says Steve Hackett, of course. Um, so I know it's a ways away, but I'm just gonna go ahead and announce it here. We are Dad and I are interviewing Steve Hackett on February 7th, so that should be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time. He has a new album coming out, and of course has been touring, so that'll be an interesting conversation. Doug also chimes in again saying, I got an early copy of the new Prog Collective 3 weeks ago and posted it then. It's very nice. Billy plays on each track with the guests. The last two are older bonus tracks from previous releases. Okay, yeah. I thought so. Thanks, Doug. So Billy was also featured in Rolling Stone about, was this a week ago or 2 weeks ago? Somewhat recently. And let me just take a sip of water before elaborating further. And thanks for tuning in, folks. Like, really appreciate it. Um, so Billy was interviewed by Rolling Stone talking about his journey with Yes and the different iterations that he was involved in and currently involved in. And it was a fascinating piece. Some of the things he talked about on there, he also talked about on our show, but there were also some bits of info that I was not really privy to. Like, for example, one of the singers during the union period, when John Anderson was with ABWH and Yes West was considering a new singer, I was aware of Billy, Roger Hodgson, Steve Walsh, and Robin Shell, apparently, but this interview was the first time that I'm aware of where I read that Robbie Neville was also considered. Um, so, yeah, but someone else chimed in saying that they thought it was common knowledge. So maybe I'm just the odd one now, and I'm just like the only one who didn't know. But there were also like some other bits of info there. Let me just pull up the notes on my phone. Like, there were a couple of update sort of things. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So Billy was asked, "Is Asia still an ongoing thing?" And he said, "Yeah, Asia is still a thing. We were supposed to tour last year, but we got a little sidetracked because Alan Parsons, who we were going to tour with, had some medical issues, so the tour got canceled, unfortunately. But I know Jeff's into it, and I'm into it, so we'll just have to see where things go. That's another situation that I never imagined in a million years would happen to me." Um, yeah, and he talks about like getting the phone call to fill in for John Wetton, who the anniversary of his passing is coming up on the 31st, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, what a legacy. So, yeah, I do hope they're able to put something together for Asia because, they were advertising this tour and then it didn't happen. It's like, I don't want the band to go out on a sort of fizzle and just like fade away like that, because it really feels like they really wanted to do the tour, but it's just a matter of the circumstances. And of course, yes is a huge priority. So I hope that they can figure out when to make time for Asia. Like, do at least like one more like sizable tour if possible. And I know there's also the material with Jeff and John that hasn't been released. I hope something can be done with that. So, yeah, I love Asia, and I do hope that they can work something out. All right, let's see. There were a couple other things in this Rolling Stone piece. Um, oh yeah, he also mentioned Yes working on a new album. So, wait, was it in this note or the next one? Yeah, he says the current lineup is gelling really, really well together as far as the personalities and the music that we're making and the music that we're playing. I know Steve, at this point in his life, is a big advocate of keeping things simple and keeping things happy and content. We have breakfast on the road together often, Steve and we don't talk about music. We just talk about life, family things, politics, whatever. So yeah, I'm really curious like what the next Yes album's going to be like, and it's really encouraging to hear that they're still at it. Like, this lineup has been doing so well together and they feel really encouraged to keep making new material. But again, as the fan, I hope that they can showcase more of the new material in concert, cuz you got to have a good balance between the classic and the new stuff. Like, show how proud you are of the new stuff, like that's my 2 cents there. And Billy also talked a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stuff. It was a huge thing back then. Yes fans were like, well, why isn't Billy playing bass? And like, it felt like the vibe was that maybe ARW didn't want him to play. Maybe there was something said there. So what Billy adds to the sort of discourse there is that let's see, uh, he talks about yes politics and uh, things were very tense. It's no mystery. I wouldn't be sharing a state secret, but yeah, he's talking about yes politics in general. So like there was like some like sort of back and forth during the Hall of Fame stuff. He says, I wanted to dodge any bullets. As soon as I heard what was going on, I retracted my own self and said, look, not going to do it. Figure it out another way. I don't want to be involved in that. It's too intense. So they finally resolve who's going to play bass. I found out it's Geddy Lee, and I'm like, that's awesome, loving that. So there we are in the green room before the show, and I've never met Geddy before, but I'm a huge fan. I walk up to him and I say, "Hey Geddy, Billy Sherwood, so nice to meet you, man. I'm a huge fan." And his first words, he says, "Why aren't you doing this?" And I looked at him and I said, "You know how band politics can be, don't you?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Nail it, bro. That's all I'm saying." Uh, and he talks about him and Jeff taking the backseat and Tony as well, which was surprising to him. And he says, "But we all have our reasons. But at the same time, I was proud to be watching my favorite band finally be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was a long time coming. And I thought to myself, I'm not up there playing with them, but I am playing with them tomorrow night at wherever the hell we were playing. So it was good." So yeah, I feel like we've been slowly getting more info on that Hall of Fame event trickling out over these last few years. And Steve Howe's autobiography and Geddy Lee's My Effin' Life memoir recently as well. So it's fascinating stuff. And yeah, it is unfortunate how band politics can sort of muddy things a bit. Um, but it is what it is. And I think ideally, the best time, personally, my opinion, the best time for Yes to get inducted into the Hall of Fame would have been around the Union period, and all the people who'd been involved by that point, who are around, they induct all like 12 of them or however many there were back then. Um, I understand that in order to be eligible, a band has to have been active for at least 25 years. So I guess that would have been the talk period. But, I'm sort of like, I guess this is sort of shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's just like a little thought that just came to mind. But yeah, it was interesting that there was that piece about Billy. He was also asked, like, I was really surprised that he was asked this, but um, whether John Anderson and Steve Howe will ever perform together again. And he basically, like, he didn't want to touch that one, and understandably so. Like, that's you know how like the Yes community can be. Um, but for what it's worth, and again, take everything with a grain of salt. But John Anderson was interviewed in Mojo magazine, and I don't have this magazine, but uh, on over on Bondiga Zoo, there are a couple details from it. Let's see. Anderson spoke of having 10 projects on the go and picked Zamran as the one he is working on most, uh, and has no plans to stop making music. Okay, but where's the thing that I was. Okay, I think I found it. Um, let's see. Says he's working on the Chagall project again and looking at possible musical or film, the story of Chagall. Uh, Kelsey Grammer is interested and has talked about directing it. Um, Talks about his memoir. Says he's only gotten as far as 86 when he discovered his spiritual teacher. Okay, where's the quote about yes? Oh, I think I know where to see it. Okay, so John was asked if about communication with Steve Howe, and he said we're still friends, but we're not connected. And then he was asked if he could see the two of them performing with Yes again, and Anderson replied, "I was talking to the band geeks and said, hopefully we can play in London and Steve will get up and do a couple of songs with us, and maybe Rick too. It just means, he finishes that quote of his, he says to the band geeks and continues in the interview, it just means talking. When I'm out there singing on my own, I still think I'm part of Yes. They still feel like my songs. So I'm not gonna bet on like the chances of that happening, like all three of them like performing like a song together. Like it would be magical. I would love to see it, but again, like there has to be the desire like on all their parts. Otherwise, it might feel forced. But in any case, I'm always up for hearing either of these guys play music. So while we're on John Anderson, I actually got to attend another Patreon meeting or Zoom Q&A thing last week, and there were some fun moments. There's some stuff I'm not going to talk about because I'm sure he wants them to be a surprise. But he said Happy New Year's to come, and we talked about that long piece he did a while ago called Open. Um, and funny enough, Michael Franklin, producer of A Thousand Hands, whom we've had on the show, he actually called during the Zoom session, and John was like, "Oh, hey, I'm in the middle of a Zoom," and yeah, Michael Franklin at that point was in Panama for Billy Cobham's 80th birthday, and so John was like, "Oh, tell him I said happy birthday." So it was a fun thing that happened during the Zoom. Um, let's see. John talked about some spirituality related stuff, and he mentioned some lyrics that he recently wrote. Um, and I guess we're still figuring out like the possibility of touring sometime this year. Talked about Jacob Collier, recommended Little Blue. I think that's a song title. Someone on the call, like their cat, walked in front of the camera, and John was like, asked if it had a question. He showed us a pic of his studio setup and talked about Tails. Um, he said that studios feel kind of sterile, so he recounted how during the Tails period, like, he had this idea of like, they weren't able to record outside, so they got cardboard cows, trees, ducks to give it a farmyard feel. He wanted it to feel like home, and also Rick was working on his album, his solo album. I think it might have been, was it Journey or something else, like something around that period. But apparently Rick would come in at a certain time, and they'd have to make sure that everything's ready for the keyboard solo. Um, I think there was also recently an article where Rick Wakeman talked about Six Wives. It might have been on Louder Sound. Let me just see if I can find that. Um, but yeah, John also said that Eddie Offord was a sweet man, and I might have to scroll through this. Oh, I almost forgot to mention over on the Solar Music Facebook page, Solar Music where Michael Franklin works. There's a video clip of Patrick Moraz playing on piano. It's really cool. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Yeah, this is on Louder Sound. And the headline was, "By the time I swapped over the tapes, I knew I was in the stinky brown stuff. Somebody said, God help us, the budget for the cover was cut back. How Rick Wakeman proved everyone wrong with the Six Wives of Henry VIII." So a nice article about that first solo album of his. But yeah, going back to the John Anderson stuff. Um, which tab was it? Okay. Um, yeah, and he also talked about the during the Paris sessions. The producer, telling the producer to make sure that they're organized, and Chris would party and stuff. Um, and he talked about how Yes had to do Tails in order to get to Awaken, which I can kind of see, yeah. And he talked about the Toddmobile performance of Awaken and how there were only 4 days of rehearsal for that, and it came out really well. Let's see. Oh, I also asked him a question. My question was, if vinyl didn't have the limitations back in the day, which songs that you worked on do you think could have been much longer? And his answer was all of them. And he recounted how he listened to Sibelius' Seventh Symphony for 3 months on the Fragile tour, then checked the tape and realized it was 26 minutes. And so he talked to Steve Howe about making a 20-minute piece, and Steve sang "Close to the Edge, Down by the River," and then John sang "Down at the End, Round by the Corner." So, talking about how much he enjoyed that collaboration. Um, okay, let's see. Yeah, so um, so he tells the people on the Patreon some things that are in the works, and so I'm on the $10 tier, so I really enjoy those conversations. It's really cool. Let's see, what else have we got on the dock? Oh, also I saw that Billy Sherwood shared a photo of his old band Logic when during the Nomadic Sands period. So that was really cool. There's also Speaking of louder and prog, there's also an article by a friend of ours, Stephen Lamb, when he interviewed Trevor Rabin about 90125. So it's a really great piece there. And again, check out his reissue of Yes, every album, every song, and also Yes in the 1980s, which details like that 80s period. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable piece, that one. There's also another article on Louder. Who was this that I talked about? This was okay. This was Hass Froberg, or is it Hass or Hasse? I'm not really sure. From Camel, believe he's from. Uh, the title says, "I was 12 when I heard Roundabout by Yes, and it floored me immediately." Uh, so yeah, there. It's a really neat article there. Um, Sorry, I just need to like double check something. Oh yeah, yeah, he is in the Flower Kings. Okay, yeah. So there are a bunch of recent articles here. Um, Let me see. Yeah, sorry if my brain seems kind of scrambled. There's just like a lot of stuff to talk about here. There's also some Trevor Horn clips over on his social media where he was talking about, some of the things on his latest album, Echoes, Ancient and Modern. And I also saw a poster someone pointed out that on Jimmy Fallon, I think it was, um, the band on that show supposedly played Leave It when Dan Levy was on. Um, but I watched the clip and I wasn't really sure. Like it sounded kind of like Leave It, but I wasn't sure if that was exactly what it was. So I don't know. People can check that out and on Peacock or NBC or whatever, and let me know what you think. There have also been some interesting things over on Roger Dean's page. Saw that some jigsaw puzzles were, yeah, there are some jigsaw puzzles on sale. I see there's like the original Asia cover, the Astra cover, and a couple other things. So, yeah, if jigsaw puzzles are your thing, maybe that'll be your speed. And there's a reel where he showed this really big, like on the canvas, like the fragile world blue. Like you get to see like how big it is as he holds it up. Um, and you can bet he's like really busy with Yes's upcoming album. I hope we get another painting session where he works on that. He also did a conversation with Chris Dyer's Positive Creations, and Roger keeps on sharing like various artworks, so really nice that he keeps that page going. And Bill Bruford actually last month appeared on Breakfast with Vinny. And really interesting conversation there. He talked about the early days of Yes and how it was kind of like John was trying to conduct an orchestra. So really cool conversation. And we know that there's the Bill Bruford fan event going on um, in June, and I think that's on June 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Let me just double check. Hang in there, folks. We're almost done here. Yeah, so the fan convention in Tokyo on June 16th, which will include Q&A, and two UK tribute bands will be performing. Then on June 29th, he is in conversation with Anil Prasad in New York, followed by Project in concert with a set including material from Bruford's back catalog. From what I understand, Bill is not performing at either of these. I think the John Wetton tribute was the exception. Like, I would be surprised if he does performed, but those are some neat events that are happening. All right, so did I get everything? Um, yeah, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I did like a faux pas, like mixing up the names earlier, so I'm I'm still like kind of reeling from that. Um, but yeah, thanks for sticking with me. Those are all the news items that I could see on my end. I know Friday is also like a huge news day, so I'm just scrolling to see if there's anything else I may have missed. Maybe if I look through it here. Okay. Yeah, I think I pretty much got everything. But that being said, I know that as soon as I end this broadcast, I'll like something else will probably come up. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Um, so yeah, thanks for following Yesshift. You can follow Yesshift at facebook.com/Yesshift, anchor.fm/Yesshift, youtube.com/@Yesshift, and you can email us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. And also check out Drum Talk TV. There's a neat conversation between Dad and Josh Griffin from Caligula's Horse. Their new album, Charcoal Grace, is out now. And yeah, so check out the stuff going on over there as well with the virtual concert and whatnot with the Kinky Wizards that's going on tomorrow. So yeah, for now, I think that's pretty much it. Looking forward to seeing you all again. And again, apologies for any errors on my part. I'm trying to like get over all of that, but you know how things are, like so many things. And again, it's been so long since our last news episode, and I just had like so much packed into this one. I knew this was gonna be a long one, almost an hour and a half, which it is. But thanks for sticking with me, and we'll let you know when we're back on. We'll be advertising and posting and sharing into groups. So until next time, have a good one, folks.